Are you a colony caretaker, or have you worked with a colony caretaker who has said, the cats are really friendly, they let me pet them, I'll just pick them up and put them in the trap? I can't begin to tell you how many times I've heard that. This may be one of the most important tips I can share with you if you're looking into starting your own TNR program. So often, colony caretakers think they can just pick up the kitties and put them in the traps. But when you think about it, even with your own family cats, resident cats, when it's time to go to the vet and you pick them up and put them in the carrier, they freak out most of the time. You're at risk of getting scratched and getting bit. And that's just not wise, and that is not safe. So please don't do that. Please don't pick up the kitties to put them in a trap. Anytime a kitty sees itself going into something confined, it will freak out. Its goal and job is to protect itself and get away from any harm or get away from any danger. And that's going to look like danger to them. So they will freak out and you will most likely get scratched or bit. And we just don't want that. So be safe, set a trap, let the kitty walk in, and no one gets scratched and no one gets bit. But the reason I want to share this with you, and the reason I started with that story, is this happens. This happens and people get bit or scratched, and then they end up going to the emergency room. And then the organization gets a phone call from the Department of Health. Yes, that has happened to me. I got a random call. I had no idea. Somebody was trapping. They had one of my traps. They were trapping cats on their property, and a cat bit them because rules were not followed. And I got a call from the Department of Health. What you need to know when it comes to this type of an event, or preventing this type of an event, or protecting yourself from this type of an event, you have to protect yourself. You have to have liability insurance. Like, of all things to talk about when it comes to TNR, you have to have liability insurance. Huge shout out to Christy Rojero. She's with the Greater Good organization and Jackson Galaxy's team. And I met her back in 2019 when I was at Jackson Galaxy's cat camp. And then I started the whole TNR program about 6 months after that, and reached out to her and said, hey, do you have any tips? Do you have any advice? And her number one piece of advice was get liability insurance. I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought about helping kitties get fixed requires liability insurance. And we have had it ever since we started. Thankfully, we have not had to use it, but it is a security blanket and it is there in case we ever need it. So we have had people get scratched, we've had people get bit, but thankfully no insurance claim has been filed. But in the event that something happens, you want to make sure you're protected. So please, please, please get liability insurance. It is so important. I see all the time on other rescue pages, other rescue groups, that one of the kitties in the traps bit someone or scratched someone. And the recommendation is always get liability insurance. You don't want it to be something that is a reaction. You want to be proactive when it comes to this. So not the most fancy, sexy video, but it is so important. It is one of the most critical things. If you're starting an organization, if you're going to be a 501c3 registered nonprofit, I highly, highly recommend looking into getting liability insurance. You won't regret it. You just want to be safe. You just want to have that blanket. The other thing is, when it comes to going out to TNR sites and working with colony caretakers, is you want to make sure you have it in writing. You have permission and to be on site, and you have all of kind of your liability statements that they sign off on, that says, in the event I get bit, I won't sue you. Or if I do choose to sue you, I'll take the proper route and proper channels. They acknowledge that the kitty's coming back with an ear tip. They acknowledge that we have permission to be on property. They acknowledge that things could go wrong during surgery and something could happen to the kitty. So you just acknowledge that there are risks, and you have it in writing and you have their signature. So those are some of my most top tips, most critical tips, is to have those waivers or have those signature forms. We use a form just through Jot form. Everybody has to fill out a Jot form in order for us to be on their property and get their kitties fixed. We gather the information from them about how many kitties are there and the location, and are they willing to be a feeder and provide food. And I acknowledge the kitties coming back with an ear tip and give permission to be on my property. So the whole form is there and with electric signature and all that. So just make sure you have all of that in place and make sure you are covered with liability insurance. We pay maybe $115 a month. So it's worth it. It's an expense that, I don't like to have, but it's a need. It is an expense that we need to have. So please keep that in mind. And this is probably one of the most critical tips when thinking about starting a TNR program. If this was helpful, like and subscribe. If you have any other advice when it comes to this, please leave it in the comments. We can learn from each other. Stay tuned for more helpful videos.